My name is Rebecca Stevenson May, and this is my Project 3, and I decided to do Cognitive Theories of Learning. This is probably what interested me the most throughout the semester is the working memory and the long-term memory and all the different things that go along with it, so that's what I decided to do. So this is kind of blurry, but it's the best I could find. So it starts with the sensory input, which are the five senses, and it goes into the sensory memory. If any attention is paid to what goes into the sensory memory, then it automatically goes to short-term memory. And then if you give it a lot of thought, then sometimes it will go to the long-term memory. But even though it goes to long-term memory, doesn't mean it's going to stay forever, because sometimes your long-term memory is lost. This goes along with education quite a bit, because if you bombard a student with a ton of information at one point, they have no time to rehearse it or to pay attention to it or to do any repetition. So it's automatically going to get lost. So if you want it to transfer over to the long-term memory, then you have to spend time on it. You have to give them little bits at a time. You have to have them repeat it verbally. Those are just some things that you have to do if you want them to actually retain the information. So the executive process on page 123, it talks about that, and that determines what a person is interested in, putting it into long-term memory, and then it determines how long the person will think about the stimuli and information in long-term memory to form new and lasting information. And then your first component is your sensory register. So we get a very large amount of information from our five senses: taste, hear, sight, smell, feel. So we get all of those things. I mean, right now I'm in my room and I see my heater going off. I see my clock ticking on the wall. I see my dog laying on his bed. I hear my husband outside blowing leaves. So, like, I have all these senses going on right now, but I'm only holding on to them for a few seconds and they're lost because I'm paying attention to this. And I put two very important things to know. That's why you have to pay attention in order to learn it and to retain it. So I have ADD, smidge of ADHD, and it was really hard for me to pay attention. And I struggled academically until I was probably about 11 because of that. So you have to be able to pay attention if you're going to learn it and you're going to retain it. Also, it takes a moment to be brought into consciousness. So I can't just throw all these bits of information on my students and then bam, straight to the new topic. They're not going to remember it. I really need to focus, give it a moment, give them little bits at a time. The second component is the working memory or the short-term memory. This is information that a person perceives and pays attention to. It's automatically transferred to the second component, which is the working memory. So it says that our working memory or a short-term memory usually has a capacity of 9 bits. So on page 126, it gave an example of a grocery list, and on the grocery list there was flour and soda pop and hamburgers, potatoes, tomato, orange juice. I mean, it was probably 20 things. And it talked about how hard it would be to memorize that shopping list before you got to the store. I don't know about you, but I can write my shopping list on my phone, and then I'll still have to go back and look at the shopping list 42 times while I'm in the store. I can't remember it very well. So that is an example of a working memory. Um, I was talking to my mom about this project and the working memory, and she was talking about how when I was little, I would watch the TV guide scroll down, and I would be looking for what I want to watch. And then I would go to my bedroom, and she would talk about how I would walk down the hallway going, channel 18, channel 18, channel 18, because I didn't want to forget that that's what channel it was because it was in my working memory. So the final component is a long-term memory, and there are 3 different components with long-term memory. So this is where we keep our information for a very long period of time. It has a larger capacity than the working memory that we just learned about. So there is episodic, semantic, and procedural memory. So episodic is personal experiences. These are the things that you've experienced through life, whether it be like a place you went or a movie you saw or a memory with your family. That's what those are. And then the semantic information or the semantic memory, those are the facts and the general information. So, for example, in your class, we always learned about putting not autistic kid, but child with autism. That's something that's going to be in my long-term memory for the rest of my life because it was facts. It was general information. I think about it all the time. Every time someone says something like that. Um, so that's that. And then procedural memory is knowing how. So like I know how to drive a car. I know how to cook. Some things. I know how to change a diaper. Like I know how to do all those things. So those are my procedural memory. And then I put this graphic because I really liked it with long-term memory. Our book didn't go into so much detail about explicit and implicit. So the episodic and the semantic, those are the explicit, and the procedural and the emotional are the implicit. So I liked how this just laid it out. It was just like how it works down the chain. And that is what I've learned about. I've really enjoyed chapter 6, probably the most out of all of them. Chapter 6 and chapter 10, I liked the motivation also. So, that is what I talked about. I will always remember things that I've learned about long term memory, and I probably won't remember all of it because of short term memory. But I thoroughly enjoyed this, and thank you.